These days, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries, and with that, we sent away good jobs and our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make all kinds of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more, right here in the USA. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs in towns and cities across the country. And jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
Hello, book lovers. Welcome to Must Love Books. Hello and welcome back to Must Love Books podcast. Today I am here with sister publishing duo Kyera and Nicole, the founders of Golden Scales Publishing, an independent woman-owned publishing company. Hi, how are you guys?
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, good. How are you?
I am so excited to have you two on. You are my first publishing company on the podcast. So congratulations.
Oh, love that.
Yeah, that's exciting.
That's an honor. Yeah.
How about we just dive right in and I'll let you guys tell us all about Golden Scales Publishing.
Sure.
All right. It was my sister Nicole's idea.
Thank you. That's great. I just wanted to be involved in the book world. I think it's probably fairly obvious, but I'm a huge reader. I'm a huge fan of all things fiction and nonfiction, but mostly fiction. And I wanted to be involved in the industry somehow. I wanted to be able to support it, and I was just trying to think of different ways to do that. And something that came to me was that you would be able to support authors, give them a chance to have maybe a more robust marketing plan if they were tied to a publishing house versus releasing self-published on their own, and throw events for them, do those kinds of things. My background is in events and marketing, so I was in the event production industry for about 12 years in New York City and all over the country. So I wanted a change. I wanted something different, but I also wanted to be able to use those skills in this way. So it really just came out of wanting to support authors, support the industry, and also getting to read good books. There's definitely that aspect of it as well that is definitely a pro. But yeah, I can let Kyera also speak to her.
But yeah, I was so excited when Cole came up with this idea. And I've always been a big reader as well. I've been more into the traditional sci-fi and fantasy versus romantasy. But as soon as I read Sarah J. Maas, I was like, oh, I see the appeal here. This is amazing. I've also been a writer since I was younger, and I can understand the author's point of view from that perspective, and how nerve-wracking it is to submit to a publisher, and how intimidating the large publishers are, and how hard it is to get your manuscript even seen by an eyeball. Like, it's very difficult. So the idea of a small publisher really appealed to me, to help these authors get seen and get a fan base in a different direction versus the larger publishers. So that was a very exciting idea. And then my background is I have a e-commerce website called The Gilded Witch, and it sells jewelry, body, and home, which is not related at all to publishing, but it helps a ton with the marketing and business side of things. So I'm bringing that knowledge over to the publishing company as well.
First of all, Kyera's a creative expert for sure. I I'm much more logistics
Very
brained.
good at logistics.
But, newsletters, ways to market things, that's definitely something that Kyera is great at and has brought to this company. But I think overall, our goal is just to support authors and to make it easier journey. The publishing house covers all of the costs from editing to cover design to marketing, social media, events, travel, all that kind of stuff. And it's just a way to get these novels out there in front of people that might not have happened before, just because it's such a tough industry. And even for us,
it is truly.
it's definitely sort of run by, the big five, and then you can do self-publishing if you want, but everything is very rigid. So it's just sort of trying to bring a different method to it.
Yeah, different channel. The channels are very controlled at the moment for this.
And it's, social media. Obviously, I have the pros and cons of social media, but it does bring books in front of people that would not have seen it before, done it before. It sort of levels the playing field in a way, and sort of trying to take advantage of that and seeing that happen, especially on TikTok, all that kind of stuff. I don't have specific articles or quotes, but people send me stuff all the time about how, Barnes & Noble is opening more stores or independent bookstores, romance bookstores. I'm in Brooklyn and there's one the Ripped Bodice that just opened near us. It's very exciting. And, that kind of thing. I think it's probably not only driven by social media, but I think it's a big part of, people are reading physical books, and that's great. So
There was one that I saw, and I can't remember what the article was from, but it did include a statistic claiming that for readers between the ages of 18 and 24, like 59% of those readers came from things like Book Talk. So social media is playing a huge role in getting more people reading, getting people back into reading, and really helping to boost the writing careers of independent authors, of new trad authors, of debut authors, of indie publishers. So you are absolutely spot on. Social media plays a huge role in what we read and how publishers publish what we read.
Yeah. And I think it's just a way to speak directly to consumers. A lot of industries try to do that. A lot of industries want to do that. And people trust their book talkers to recommend what they want to read. If that's how people are going to read more, then that's a benefit. Obviously, there's a lot of cons to social media, but I do think that that's right now we're in that moment where it's driving a lot of popularity and a lot of sales, specifically in the romance and fantasy genres for sure.
So I do want us to talk about the difficulties of being a small independent publisher. What kind of challenges have you faced as a team getting to this point?
Do you want to take that or you?
Sure. The startup is not the hard part. The hard part has been the wholesale aspect of it is very difficult when you're trying to sell to bookstores. So we publish our books through Ingram Spark, and then the bookstores will buy through Ingram Spark, and they have to get a discount of like 55% discount. So they buy it at that cheaper cost, which we lose money already a lot from that. And then they always have a return policy that never expires. So they can return these books whenever they want to if they don't sell them. And then they also, Ingram Spark will still charge us for printing those books, even if they get returned. So it's been an eye-opener of how difficult it is to actually turn a profit as a publishing company if you're not Barnes & Noble and buying massive bulks of books. It's very difficult for a startup publisher to break into that industry. Even Amazon. Amazon will buy 200 books, sell 100 and return 100, and you get charged for them. It's been difficult in that sense.
And distribution is very difficult for independent publishers to get into bookstores because typically bookstores only buy from the big five publishing houses. They have those established relationships. Those publishing houses print and store on their own. They have warehouses, all those kinds of things. Print on demand is what Ingram Spark does. So that's a different different setup, different system. So it's established. Everything is established. They talk to their reps, they order from the same people, they do all the same things. So it's harder to break into that space as a smaller publisher and say, hey, you should carry this book, and it's not coming from their rep, it's not coming from someone they know. And you really do also have to have a pretty large catalog of books for them to consider you, to look at you and think, oh, okay, this is an established publisher who has 50 titles or something. I feel like distribution is to publishers what, getting your manuscript accepted is to authors. It's like
That's a good one.
That is a good one, yeah.
To get the distribution the same way authors are trying to get us to accept the manuscript. So it's definitely something, we work on, and because we do want our books to be in bookstores, it's definitely part of the longer process. But what Kyera was saying is definitely true. The return and discount policy and all that stuff just feels like it's set up that you do not really make that much of a profit.
Yeah, it seems like the industry makes it very challenging for indie publishers to get into the market. And I think that's something that a lot of readers and, possibly authors as well just don't really realize because, we're seeing it from a different perspective. So we're not seeing this transparency or the, kind of like secret business side of independent publishing. So I really love that you're willing to share this and kind of open up that discussion for those who are interested in what it takes to support an independent publisher and, for those interested, what it takes to maybe become an independent publisher themselves.
I was going to say the ebook has sort of helped a lot with bridging the gap between small and large.
Yeah, the margins on that are much better since you're not printing it and nobody is returning it. But yeah, I was just going to say, I think I saw I think it was Threads, Raven Kennedy, who's an independent author who became quite famous. And she had a post that said she was charged $60,000 by Ingram Spark for returns. Who has that? That's crazy. A very absurd amount of money. That's obviously just very crazy. So things like that is allowed to happen, that they charge you for books that were not ordered. It's just a very, I don't know if antiquated is the right term, but I feel like they've been doing this for a long time and they have not updated anything. Amazon is now in existence and they just order 500 books because who cares? They return 495 of them, no cost. So
There's
I feel
no
like
consequence for them.
Yeah, the industry sort of needs to change as the times have changed and as things have been updated and way more people are self-publishing. And so I think different things need to be managed. That's not really a helpful system for anybody except Ingram Spark and Amazon.
Right, which is probably why they don't change.
Right.
Like it's working. Somebody's gonna come in.
Unfortunately, the market might be working exactly how they intend for it to. But that's another topic entirely.
Yes, that's a different podcast.
So in order to help address that challenge, you really focus on e-readers and digital copies of your titles.
Yeah, we definitely have it available everywhere. So we encourage people to buy print as well. It's just something we have to deal with as the publisher, quite frankly. We want it to be in independent bookstores. We want it to be available. So we also have it available from us directly that you can buy from Golden Scales, which is a way to support us in a more direct manner. I think that the genre itself lends itself more to ebooks anyway. I think that romantic fantasy and things like that are more popular on Kindle. We're available everywhere. It's just part of the industry.
So what are some of the, the fun aspects of being an independent publisher? We've gone to some of the challenges.
For me, the most fun part is reading the manuscripts and seeing what people have sent in their books and what they're excited about, because they're always so enthusiastic about their novels. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun to see what you get in your inbox.
I really like the publishing process. Surprise. I like the logistical task management aspect. Seeing it come together and seeing the pieces come into a physical thing, a literal physical thing. I think that that's just really beautiful, that you start with something, this idea, this Word document, and then the cover design. That's always very fun. Different ideas and getting excited about that. And then at the end, when we got our first physical,
that was so fun.
Fire Queen, it was amazing.
It
this
was.
beautiful physical thing that every detail you've thought about, where the page numbers go, what the chapter headings look like, what the font is, all of that stuff has been something that we and our author made the decision on. And that's just a very rewarding thing to have that final physical product. But yes, the step by step fun for me. I like that.
And the cover design, like you said, is a lot of fun to work on. We have a great cover design artist, and she sends over ideas, and we get to look through them and talk about them, and it's very fun.
Shout out to Stephanie Stott, our cover
Yes.
designer.
hmm
That's a fun creative part of it.
And I'd say even as a small publisher, like brainstorming different ways to get to an audience and to figure out how to get into a bookstore or, even Cole, when you put together the launch event in Anchorage for Liar Queen, like figuring that out. And that part is fun. Brainstorming creative solutions is fun.
Yeah, there's really no wrong answers.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just trying a bunch of different stuff.
Mhm.
You're thinking about what might work. And I feel like what we talked about earlier with social media makes it so that you're really able to just see what you can do and get out there and talk to your audience and do a giveaway or do some sort of pre-order incentive, do these kinds of things and say, okay, what worked, what didn't work. And so it does feel like you have a lot of creative leeway because we're a small company. It's just the two of us.
Yeah.
We just get to bounce ideas off of each other and figure out what works. And I will say that getting to work with my sister has been very fun too.
Good point. Yes.
I'm not contractually obligated to say that. That has been very fun too. Talking to each other all the time and figuring that stuff out is a benefit.
Yeah, we don't live near each other, so we see each other a lot more via Zoom now.
Yes. Yeah, it's nice to be able to check in and stuff. It is fun. It is definitely a fun process.
Yes.
And the final result is that's very cool.
And the authors are so excited too when they see their book in print. And
Yes. I think that's really nice too, being able to send that to them.
yeah.
So, what interests you in a book that is being submitted? What do you look for?
We have a few different genres. We don't accept young adult. So a lot of the time, if they say it's young adult, it's like, okay, well, you didn't really read the guidelines or something. Or if it's the wrong genre, it's pretty quickly like, okay, this is, I appreciate that you tried, but I'm not sure this is what we're looking for. And then if we get into, the plot description and stuff, what I really love is seeing comparisons to what other novels it's similar to. A lot of people do that. Not everybody does that, but I find it really helpful. One that we are publishing in August, Daughter of the Void, was, as she put it, a cross of Brandon Sanderson and Sarah J. Maas. And I immediately was like, okay, I love both of those authors. I have a pretty distinct idea of what you're telling me. It's, high fantasy world building with some romantic tension and maybe some spice. I look for those comparisons because it really helps me, before I even open the manuscript, visualize what it's going to be about. Beyond that, I think good writing is definitely more important than a good plot line. There's a lot of times where I read the synopsis and I get really excited, and then maybe the writing just isn't quite there. The opposite is true as well. If you start to read something, you're like, I don't know about this plot, but this writing is like, I can't put this down, or I don't care what happens next. In the beginning, I was really focused on it has to have a great synopsis. It has to be like the whole plot has to be the hook. But people, obviously, the writing style for me is what ended up really being important.
Yeah, I agree completely. Plot points we can develop later too if we accept a manuscript and the writing is fantastic, but the plot needs a little bit of tweaking. We can always do that later. I actually prefer not to read the cover letter before I read the first few pages of a manuscript and just get a sense of it right away.
I kind of dig that you like to read the first few pages before the cover letter, because so many are kind of doing things the other direction. And I don't know, something about that. I just really like that. Just dive right into the beginning of the story and then go and see the cover letter and,
Yeah.
see how it translates over and like, is it kind of matching the synopsis? Is it kind of matching the genres pointed out in the cover letter? I like that.
No, thanks. Yeah. Yeah, it's because you can tell the writing if it's going to be good. And if you like the writing, then you can go back and read the synopsis and be like, okay, this sounds like I'll keep going and sounds good. I was surprised how quick you can tell. within the first few pages. Because when we first started, we're like, oh, we got to read like 3 chapters to get a full sense of what, but you can tell pretty quickly in the first few pages. So they're very important, those first few pages.
And we ask for the full manuscript
Mhm.
in our submissions because it's just the two of us. We're a small team. If we really love something, we are going to have to read all of it. I think larger publishing companies, they ask for the first chapter or something because they have like 10
Yeah.
interns. The job it is to read the first chapter. Some people do ask us, why do you need the full thing? It's like, well, I need to make sure that it's done because it's just the two of us. And if I'm asking you for something and you haven't completed it yet, and also because we end up reading the whole thing if we're interested. And we have asked authors, to change certain things or, oh, can we add this element? We were interested in hearing more about this character or things like that. So it's nice to be able to have that conversation because we've read the whole thing.
Mhm.
I would say definitely getting it and reading the writing style is more important than the synopsis.
So, what does your submission process fully entail? You've touched on this a little bit, but what is the full submission process?
Yeah, so we just ask for that you email us, info@goldenscalespublishing.com, and you send us your full manuscript, either Word document, PDF is fine, including your name, contact info, if you have an author website or social media that you want us to take a look at. And we do ask for a synopsis. We do need to have a plot overview. And like I said, we don't ask for novel comparisons, but if you're listening to this, you now know that we enjoy having a little novel comparison. And that's pretty much it. We aim to get back to every single submission within 3 months. It's just the two of us. So we work hard to make that happen, whether it's a yes or a no.
If we're interested, we will reach out to you.
There's always a lot of talk as writers on, how much editing to do. So, how much editing do you prefer to see from a submitted manuscript?
So we do provide editing in the process. We've worked with a really great editor, Morgan Macedo at Glasswing Editing, on our manuscripts. So we don't require that there's any editing when you submit it. But I think it's just a matter of how does it look when it's submitted? Spelling errors or things like that throughout the manuscript that does impact when we're reading it. It's just a human response. I would say making sure that those kind of errors are gone is important, but it doesn't have to have gone through developmental edits. We definitely are going to put it through line editing at the minimum. And our editor she's wonderful, and she's going to go through and say, in this paragraph you said he had blue eyes, and in this one you mentioned he had green eyes. She's going to cover that. So those kind of continuity errors are fine. I would say it's just a little distracting if you're reading the manuscript and there's like a ton of copy edits.
Just make sure it's polished when you send it off.
So, you mentioned briefly about the recent release of Liar Queen. So, let's just go ahead and dive in and talk a little bit about this novel.
So Liar Queen is by M.T. Soloman, and it is a romantic fantasy. A lot of people have been calling it like a cozy romantic fantasy, which I appreciate. A closed door, slow burn romance, and it is about two sisters fighting for the crown. I don't know whether it says something about us that our first published was about two sisters fighting for the right to the throne. But it's an epic quest novel. It has romance. It has really beautiful world building. It takes place in the jeweled realm. It has a map at the beginning. I love a map at the beginning of a book. It's really about the character development and figuring out your identity and your journey. And Mara, the main character, what kind of queen does she want to be? And Bowden is the male main character, and he's a green flag male main character. He's
Very much a golden retriever.
yeah, very golden retriever, as one reviewer called him. People love him. He's a great guy. Yeah, it's like an adventure fantasy romance, I would say. Very richly imagined world.
Yes, that's what caught us first was the writing. She was an excellent writer that stood out from the rest by far.
You just wanted to be there, and you felt like you could be in that world.
Yeah. And it was seamless. You didn't break out of the world because you're like, oh, this doesn't make any sense, or this part of the world doesn't make sense. It was all very seamless and smooth and made sense.
And you have coming out later this year in August Daughter of the Void by H.R. Cole.
It's a little spicier. It's another epic fantasy romantasy. This one has a protagonist who discovers herself along the way, and it has a much more high tension romance with Laris and Raylan. Raylan's the main character, Laris is the love interest. And the author is excellent. She's excellent at writing tension between the two, and he's the gruff, grumpy love interest, and she's more of the sunshine. She has some hidden talents and powers that are discovered throughout her life, and she has to grapple with them and decide if she wants to truly embrace them and who she is. It's going to be very exciting. It comes out.
So how many books are you hoping to kind of publish in a year?
Good question.
Yeah, I think as we sort of figure everything out and the process and what works and doesn't work, I think if it's just still the two of us as the team, I think probably 3 to 4 a year would
Yeah.
be our goal.
The Liar Queen took the longest, I think, because we had to build our team and figure out who we're going to use for editing, who we're going to use for the cover. And then now that we have all those pieces in place, it's much easier to slot everything in and make a timeline and be like, okay, we know how long this is going to take. We know who we're going to use. So yeah, I think 3 to 4 is definitely doable.
Could do more, and maybe we will. We're really focused on each of these. We spend a lot of time on them. We spend a lot of time creating marketing plans and working on them. We just dedicate a lot of time. So I think if we streamline things or figured something out or change the model, but right now it's like, this is our baby for a long time, and then we'll switch and this one will be the one. So I think at this time, 3 to 4 would probably be the most, but we'll see.
I think that's a great starting point because it really allows you, I mean, obviously the chance to explore and figure out what works best for you as a company. But from an author perspective, it really allows you to be very personalized with your authors and really develop that relationship with your authors while building connections with readers, and really gives your authors a chance to shine instead of, kind of competing against their own coworkers, quote unquote. So I really love that. I think that's a really great starting point.
And I will say the authors are very involved too. So they're involved with the editing process, obviously, and even the cover design. We talk with them about it and they're involved. So it is a very personal process for each author, definitely.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't, like you said, I wouldn't want it to feel like, oh, Liar Queen came out yesterday and tomorrow there's a new one. And we spend a lot of individual time on these, so we think that they deserve their little time in the sun and stuff.
I love that. And I really love that authors are able to be involved in the process, because that is one thing with the big five trad publishing. Authors kind of give up a little bit of their voice in order to reach that publishing dream. So when working with an indie publisher such as yourselves, authors are able to still achieve those goals and find that dream while maintaining some semblance of creative control and still keeping their own voice, which is something that I really love to see.
Very important to us. We want to support the author. We don't want to just turn this into what we want to do. It's their work, and that's deeply personal. We understand that.
And we are trying to separate ourselves from the big five, and I think that's a big part of how we do that. It is a very personalized experience when you work with us.
American Giant makes great clothing, sweatshirts, jeans, and more right here in the U.S. Visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order with code STAPLE20. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com, code STAPLE20.
Time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.
So The Liar Queen was a winner of the Literary Titan Book Awards. Even with publishing with an independent and new agency, you're still able to win awards. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's part of our job, submitting for awards, researching awards, figuring all that out, doing the editorial review process. And that's, I think, something, again, that costs money, submitting for reviews and things. So if you're doing a ton of books, you might not do that for each book. But I think that the model that we have of not releasing a ton of books allows us to really focus on each one and say, okay, well, I think we should put some money towards the editorial reviews, towards awards and things like that, and submissions. We were so excited, when they email you and they say Liar Queen is an award-winning novel, here's all your graphics, you can order a certificate, all that kind of stuff. It feels great. Excited. We were so proud of MT and excited to share that with her. Any of those kinds of things are just really, really exciting.
Big shout out to our team, Stephanie for the covers, Morgan for the editing, Jared. Oh my gosh. So another thing that I didn't realize would be so complicated is laying out the book.
Interior formatting
is so finicky and so difficult. So Jared, our technical formatter, has been fantastic figuring all that out. That's the ebook side of things too, formatting it for ebook. Victoria for the maps, Victoria Diaz for the maps that you'll see. Emily.
They did our book tour and our PR packages and all that kind of stuff. That was really important. Accepted like 50 boxes of candles to put in our book boxes. So thank you for storing those. We couldn't do it without that. Everybody has helped us learn how to do everything. The amount of times I was like, it's not uploading on my Kindle. The cover's not uploading, and Jared and I had to go back and forth like 50 emails. So
Okay, so we're going to try something a little bit new and different. As many of our listeners know, I am a writer and I have been working on a couple different projects that have been mentioned a little bit here and there. So we're going to try something where I'm going to kind of pitch my query to Golden Scales Publishing, and they're going to just kind of provide some real-time feedback so that any of our listeners who are interested in writing a query letter or who have no idea where to even start with something like that, here is a live example for you to follow.
Let's see how it goes.
Here's an example for our aspiring writer listeners.
Oh, I love Supernatural, so I already want to read this.
Yeah, so I was going to say right off the bat, I know that Kyera is going to love the comparison to Supernatural because that's her favorite television show.
Yeah.
And I talked about this earlier, but that's super helpful. I had fans of the popular CW series Supernatural, as well as paranormal romance books such as The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned The Haunting of Bryn Wilder by Wendy Webb. I just feel like that is a very helpful way to start off the letter to tell me exactly what book I'm about to read.
I like the placement in the first paragraph.
Yeah, having that right off the bat is super helpful. I like sometimes you have just seeking representation for my fantasy romance novel, and it's like, okay, I don't know anything else about this novel besides, so this is super helpful.
So for our listeners, this is an example of my query letter for Blood and Lies, which is the paranormal romance, the ghost hunter romance that I've talked about just a little bit on the podcast here and there, that is very loosely inspired by a supernatural fan fiction I wrote 15 years ago in high school for a little backstory.
That's amazing.
I love that.
So many good fan fictions from that show.
So many.
We also didn't mention having the word count is very important too. A great little touch.
We don't have a specific word count, but it does help in terms of, just orients you and someone said something, this is 180,000 where you're like, well, okay.
Yeah. Buckle up.
Let's you know what you're getting into.
Yeah, the word count is helpful. I was going to say, I like that you mentioned it's complete and is the first in planned series.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's important information to know, that it's going to be a series and that it's probably going to end on a cliffhanger. I like that you say friends to lovers romance because that's a specific trope, and mentioning any specific tropes are important. Some people have a lot of feelings about friends to lovers romance.
And I also like that you provide your Instagram and your TikTok and that you already have them, which is very helpful.
That is very helpful. I think that, you don't have to have social media set up in order to query, but it does definitely help to know that if you were to start promoting this, you already have a built-in audience.
You have a large audience. That's nice.
That's great. Yeah, you're already sharing sneak peeks and everything. That's super helpful. People want it to be released soon. Your podcast.
The podcast is extremely helpful.
Yeah, I think this is a great letter.
Thank you. It's not fully.
You have a monthly spicy adult book club. Nice.
I do. Yes, we do it here on Must Love Books podcast. We do the Something Smutty book club, And it's semi-monthly. It's not really fully
Mhm.
monthly because there are 6 of us, so we don't always find the time for everyone to meet together. But really, we pick some kind of smutty book. Lately, it has been some kind of a comedy, erotica, or a novella for time, and also because they are usually hilarious and unhinged. And we are here for the chaos. So it's something that we like to do on this podcast that is super fun.
Yeah, that's great.
That was an excellent query letter. That was very well done.
Yeah, that's a great letter.
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, would you have any suggestions, any additional advice that you would give, or anything that you would add or like to see?
So I think in terms of plot synopsis, I will say that sometimes I like to know everything that happens. Well, if I start to read the manuscript and it's really good and I want to read more, I will
Mhm.
go back to the plot synopsis and see what's going to happen. Sometimes I do like a little bit more detail of like literally spoilers, but just so that I can then map out in my head, oh, well, I don't know, how is that going to happen? Or oh, that person's going to die or something. I don't know. That might be a personal thing, but I do like there to be a pretty detailed, like, and then at the end,
Mm.
this is what happens.
Yeah, personally, I don't mind if they do or don't. And maybe just a tiny paragraph about yourself. I don't know, just a little bit about you. I do like when the authors include just a tiny paragraph about them personally, I guess.
I mean, you do have your founder of the podcast, but
Yeah,
sometimes people will tell us, I
where they
live
live and
blah 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 with
do they
my
have pets. And
dogs. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so like including a little bit of info that you would see in like an author bio as part
Exactly.
of your query letter. I like that. That's a good
Mhm.
Yeah.
note.
That can just personalize it a little bit.
Mhm. But yeah, this is very good.
Yeah, this is a very good query letter.
Mhm.
Front loading it with
Yeah.
all of the like, this is how many words it is, this is the books that it's like, all that kind of stuff is really helpful. To be honest, we don't know who the characters are because we haven't read the manuscript, so it's the stuff that's important.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun. Good notes. You sort of feel like when you read a bunch of these, you start to realize, oh yeah, there are things that immediately jump out.
The query letter is almost like a mini manuscript where the first few sentences are very important instead of the first few pages. Um, and it is mostly just logistics that we want to know versus the actual synopsis.
And I will say that if your query letter is not well written,
Also that.
then I'm going to be worried that the manuscript is, if there are mistakes in it, if there are really glaring grammatical stuff, if you clearly sent it to, I mean, I send a lot of emails to pitching our books and pitching all this kind of stuff. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying I've never done this, but if you send something and it says, I think this would be a great addition to your publishing company because you publish XYZ and it's clearly not our publishing company, or it's, just recycled from a different one or things like that. People notice that.
Yeah.
And I think that if you just got to double check that you're sending it. I understand you're sending this to a lot of people, but just got to double check. And if the query letter has a bunch of errors and stuff, it's the first thing you read. You're going to notice
Mhm.
it.
Yes, always double check any email before you send it
Yeah.
to make sure that you've got the right people
Yeah.
and you're saying the right thing. That's just life
Yes.
advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you just gotta double check.
Well, that brings us to pretty much the end of our time here.
Well, you can find us on our website, goldenscalespublishing.com. You can email us, info@goldenscalespublishing.com. And you can find us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We have Liar Queen, which is out now. You can buy that anywhere that you buy books. And we have Daughter of the Void coming up. Hopefully this is just the beginning.
Forward to reading all your submissions.
We do enjoy it.
We do. We do.
Well, I want to thank you both, Nicole and Kyera, for joining me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you so much. This is great. We really
Yeah, thank you. This was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Must Love Books. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Patreon under @MustLoveBooksPodcast. Thank you and happy reading.
time is precious, and so are our pets. So time with our pets is extra precious. That's why we started Dutch. Dutch provides 24/7 access to licensed vets, with unlimited virtual visits and follow-ups for up to 5 pets. You can message a vet at any time and schedule a video visit the same day. Our vets can even prescribe medication for many ailments, and shipping is always free. With Dutch, you'll get more time with your pets and year-round peace of mind when it comes to their vet care.